This is the Run Pod Option. I'm Marty.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Jeff.
Run Pod Option on Twitter. runpodoption@gmail.com. Welcome to Week 13, Big Pick Energy. Gentlemen, are we ready to not pick games, but to play a quick game?
I love games.
I said games way too many times. All right, this is the energy boost, okay? This is the energy show. I'm standing up. I'm pacing. It's a little hot in here. So my idea that I had last week that we didn't get to was for us to put together our dream bowl games. And that's for just this season. It's taking out all the bowl tie-ins that we do or don't know. And it's taking away all of the records of the teams. I want all 130 FBS teams. And if you feel like you want to, FCS teams to be included on these fake bowl games.
Ready.
So, I've got a list. It's probably a little long. So I'm just going to get us started, okay?
Well, first I want to know if you've checked it twice, because we are getting to that time of the year.
You know, as someone that's not a real big Christmas P1, I can still appreciate that joke, and I'm also just going to move on. So, my first one is Texas Tech against North Carolina, just so Mac Brown has to deal with Jet Duffy and have just his eyes glaze over as he's down to Texas Tech by 20 points. Or if Texas Tech comes back and wins a game.
Jeez.
So that should kind of set the tone. Some of these are, like, genuinely I think would be really great matchups. But that should set the tone for this game. Whichever one of y'all wants to go next, feel free. For
an actual game that I kind of want to see, and I actually don't know if it would really turn out that well, but I'd kind of like to see it. Utah LSU.
Ooh.
I want to see that defense go up against that offense.
Fun.
We may get a chance to see it if Utah beats Oregon.
I'm here for it.
So my first bowl game is a team that we should all support, the nation's troops, Army, versus the beleaguered Michigan State Spartans. Strength against strength. The team that runs the ball all the time versus the team that can only defend the run. I think it'll be great.
How many points do you think Michigan State manages? 20?
Yeah, I think they're 14-17.
This is probably with only like 5 possessions the whole game. So that means they're also scoring like 3/4.
Yeah.
I have a real one that I think would be competitive. I have East Carolina against Oregon State. Because Oregon State has a really, really fun pass attack, and so does East Carolina. And I don't think there's a chance. East Carolina is definitely not going bowling. Oregon State has a chance. We'll cover that when we get to picks. But I think it could be potentially the type of score. Was it Syracuse and West Virginia had a few years ago?
Oh, Syracuse and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Where it went, 71-66?
That's absolutely insane. All right, Kyle.
Okay, so this one has a bit of a caveat to it. I want USC versus Florida State, but it has to be played in a dome because hanging from the rafters is Urban Meyer in a cage, and the winner gets him as their head coach.
Is there potentially a chance that whatever team is down at half gets him for the second half?
No. This is purely
whoever wins gets Urban Meyer.
Gets to unlock his cage.
It's Urban Meyer
You get
in
to
a
lower
cage.
Oh
it's very Buff Bagwell, Judy Bagwell on a pole.
Yeah, they turn off the digital scoreboard, and he has to update the numbers as it's going on.
Jeez. I've got kind of a fun one, and I'm going to admit I lifted this off the ESPN projections today, but I think this would just be fun to watch because I don't know of when they've ever played Notre Dame and Oklahoma State.
When have they ever played? I'm going to look that up real quick.
I just think it would be really a fun matchup. Notre Dame was playing better, after this week, and Oklahoma State has gotten better over the season. I just think it would be a kind of a fun game to watch.
Whose coach would explode first?
They have no previous matchups ever.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm here for it. I'm going to go right into that. And go ahead.
Just say Mike Gundy would pull his junk out on the field and tell Brian Kelly he's a real man.
Can you imagine two less alike coaches than Brian Kelly and Mike Gundy? I have Oklahoma State against Ole Miss so that we get to see Spencer Sanders and old boy Plumlee just run themselves to death back and forth up the field. And it ends up having basically like an Army-Navy type box score with all the rushing yards.
I like that. Give me... This also has to be played in Nashville. I
love all the specifics.
Yeah, the stipulations to mine. Tennessee versus Florida Atlantic, just so we can see the homecoming of Lane Kiffin.
What about instead it's Florida Atlantic and USC, and they're playing in Nashville in front of and Lane Kiffin's coaching both teams, and Tennessee's just sitting there with their hands up their ass.
Derek Dooley's just down there watching it.
Yeah.
A stool.
I have Louisville against App State, the Satterfield Bowl.
Satterfield Bowl.
And then I have one that is definitely a joking one, but I'm curious who you guys think would win, is Northwestern against North Dakota State. Because give me North Dakota State by 20.
Yeah, give me North Dakota State. I don't trust Northwestern at all.
Just kind of indulging my personal interests. I think
that's what we're all here for.
I think
to indulge Jeff's personal interest.
to flatter Jeff.
I think a Michigan-Washington game or even a Michigan-USC game would be a lot of fun either way. What
about Washington-Georgia with Eason against Fromm? That could be kind of neat. It'd be an ugly game.
Pretty similar teams, yeah.
The former quarterbacks. Because I think one of mine would have definitely been this year, Oklahoma and Alabama, if they both did make the playoffs to see Hurts versus Tua. But that's obviously not going to happen now. Unless they have Tua in a Hugh Freeze-like contraption.
Speaking of Hugh Freeze, let's go Liberty versus Baylor to see who's more pious.
Dude, I was trying to find something for Liberty so bad, and I was like, do I go Boston College? Do I go Notre Dame? And Baylor is absolutely the better pick.
Liberty going to a bowl game this year? They have 6 wins? They do.
Yeah, they're going to go bowling.
Freeze.
They're gonna ice out his bed.
I have Iowa State against Auburn. Bo Nix playing against older Bo Nix. And I think Brock Purdy against a really elite defense would be fun. And I think Bo Nix playing against a defense that Matt Campbell runs that he hasn't seen all year could be a pretty fun game. And I think that there's a chance that Auburn could really take advantage of the 3-man fronts that Iowa State likes to run and really have a big day.
To indulge myself, I want Syracuse to play an all-star team of all 3 directional Michigan teams. Just because Syracuse needs some action in their life.
Michigan sweeps.
Probably.
What about
beat up on Western?
What about instead Syracuse against a super team of Buffalo, Rutgers? Let's go ahead and throw Albany in there. They're having a good season.
Pretty much just be Buffalo's team then.
Half Albany, half Buffalo.
What's Rutgers bringing to the table here?
I don't know. A bigger stadium, maybe? That's really it?
No, nobody wants to go to Piscataway.
I have Baylor against Minnesota as one of mine, too.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Just kind of kick off, kind of celebrate, call it like the Champagne Bowl or something. Celebrate both teams that really overperformed over a lot of people's expectations and probably both go in at 10 wins, which is really neat.
Can we go Florida State, Texas A&M, just so Florida State,
Bowl?
Yeah, just so Florida State can see what they lost?
What if it's even better and it's what Jimbo didn't bring with him, and it's the Florida State assistant that's been there like 33 years that beats him?
A&M about the same as what Florida State is?
I think A&M's slightly better, but if Kellen Mond was hurt, it might be closer. I think we'd have a game there.
Can we also do SMU Arkansas in memory of Chad Morris?
Ooh, yes, the Chad Morris
Bowl.
The Morris Memorial.
I will close with what I'll call the Who's the True Orange Bowl with Texas versus Syracuse.
Tennessee with a run-in with a chair. My final one is mostly out of just a morbid curiosity. It's Ohio State against UMass to see if Ohio State could score 100 points.
I want that.
UMass
they
is
didn't.
giving up 52 points per game, and Ohio State's beating teams by like 24 points a game.
And people thought Ohio State was going to do that to Rutgers, and I think they scored, 49? So
Yeah, but they hung like more than that on Cincinnati, didn't they? Didn't they win that like 52-0 or something?
yeah, they're doing their boy Fickle dirty.
You don't sleep on Rutgers. It's when they're at their most desperate that they're at their most dangerous.
Also, in this Ohio State UMass game, there is one stipulation. That's that Ohio State can't take their players out. They have to go full bore all the time.
Which they did do against Rutgers, so.
Do you think they could hang 100 if Ohio State had to pick their starting 11 on both offense and defense, and there was no substitutions the entire game either? Like if they go 3 receivers, there's no bringing in a 4th receiver, and it's J.K. Dobbins the entire time. I think they still score 100.
Oh no!
All right, any last entrance into this Super Bowl Hall of Fame before we get to picks?
Let's just throw out like Washington State and Baylor and make them play in the snow.
Like that. We could also do for potentially a rubber match, New Mexico State and Liberty for the third match of this year. Okie dokie. So last week, week 12, was kind of a pick and choose type of week. There were some really good games, but they weren't necessarily good all the way through. There were definitely some bad games. It's kind of a weird time of the season because we're all kind of ramping up for that last week before conference championships.
Well, and it's also it's the week where the SEC decides to play, Norfolk State and Western Carolina, and
where they get to spoil like 3 FCS teams that are playoff hopefuls and just ruin their day. This schedule's a little light. I would listen after you listen to us to the Solid Verbal because they do a window of opportunity for the time you can afford not to watch college football this Saturday in the event you need some errands to take care of. It's a pretty good bit. So let's start with Temple at Cincinnati. Cincinnati are 10.5-point favorites. The Bearcats, in the 2 of the last 3 weeks, have needed late field goals to beat ECU and South Florida. But Cincinnati's winning games at home on average by 23.2 points.
Yeah, but I think I have too much respect for Temple. Give me Temple to cover.
Kyle, I learned my lesson that Temple defense is stingy. I think they cover as well.
I'm going to go with Temple as well. I think Cincinnati still wins the game, but
I might even take the under on that point spread.
46.5.
On that point, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a chance it's Ohio in November, right? There's a chance for nasty weather.
Yeah.
Next, we have Texas at Baylor. Baylor are 4-point favorites. 2 notes I want to have here. Texas have won 4 in a row against Baylor. The other one was Texas has now lost at least 4 games 10 years in a row, which is insane to me. But that's not really important as part of this pick. I just thought you guys should know.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that.
I'm taking Texas to cover.
I'm taking Baylor. I think that they come out pissed off after last week and maybe put a hurting on Texas.
I'm going to go with Baylor as well. Texas just isn't that good. A lot of injuries, really inconsistent. I think Baylor comes back and wins.
It's also 2 offenses that are run by the same quarterback in Ellinger and Brewer, who are basically copycats of one another. But I think Texas has a little bit more playmakers. They can at least, I don't know if they win even, but I think they cover 4. Maybe lose by 2 or 3.
If they're the same person, does Baker Mayfield hate both of them?
Does.
Baker Mayfield hates anyone but Baker Mayfield. We have Michigan at Indiana. Michigan are 8-point favorites on the road. Michigan has been on a roll, and they could let down the entire nation by preventing 9-win Indiana.
Oh, and I think they kind of do it. Give me Michigan. Do we know about the Penix enhancement?
Out for the year.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, give me Michigan, too. I know that they looked better against Penn State, but I think that Michigan's kind of firing on all cylinders right now after that Michigan State game. Give me Michigan.
No, I'm going to say I don't feel great about this. Ramsey, who's quarterbacking for Indiana, has been really good. And Scott, their running back, is awesome. So I'm going to take Indiana. I think Michigan still wins, but I think it's only by a field goal or 6.
I'm going to pick Michigan. I think they look poor because of a look ahead to Ohio State. But I think that same quarterback, Ramsey, who did not play poorly against Penn State in that second half, I think he makes some kind of turnover that ends up being the difference, and I think Michigan wins by 10 or 12. Oregon State at Washington State. Washington State are 13-point favorites. I teased the Oregon State discussion in our last episode, but I want to bring up that this is probably Oregon State's last chance this year to become bowl eligible. They're 1 win away from 6. They're probably not going to get it against Oregon. And mostly A-plus effort by Jonathan Smith, their coach. I'm happy that Score Vallis is back, but I also have Washington State covering.
They still haven't removed the statue of me outside after our NCAA football dynasty of years ago at Oregon State. But you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna say Oregon State covers. They don't win, but they cover.
I really hate to be so aligned with Kyle again, but I'm going with Oregon State too. I think Washington State still wins, but they're going to keep it under 10.
And Washington State has a pretty poor record of if there's 2 quarterbacks that throw for 400 yards or something like that. I think they have like a pretty poor win percentage. So that's something to keep in mind potentially.
Jeff, don't feel so bad about being aligned with me. The records for this week, or last week, you and I were both 7-5. Marty was 5-7.
Yeah, I was hoping we wouldn't bring it up because it's probably my worst week. Or at least it's the worst week that we have recorded because the other week that didn't record a few weeks back, we all did awful. So it's probably best for the world that didn't happen. Moving on, we have Pitt at Virginia Tech. The Hokies are 3-point favorites, and a win would make the UVA Virginia Tech the play-in game for the ACC championship.
I think Virginia Tech covers because I don't trust Pittsburgh. I don't trust an Narduzzi at all. And it's at Virginia Tech. They looked pretty good this past weekend.
Yeah, they hammered Georgia Tech. Was it Georgia Tech they played? Yeah.
Yeah, Virginia Tech has really turned things around. Other than a really close loss to Notre Dame, they've been on a much better streak. So I'm going to take Virginia Tech too.
I'm going to take Virginia Tech to cover as well. I think, yeah, this is definitely the biggest game in the SEC this week. We have Texas A&M at Georgia. Georgia are 14-point favorites. And we have Kellen Mond, who's just a better Bo Nix.
Give me A&M to cover. I don't think they win. But Georgia's offense is weird, boring. Yeah, give me A&M to cover.
If you use the transitive property, A&M hammering South Carolina means they hammer Georgia, but I'm with you. I think Georgia still wins, but I wouldn't trust Georgia with a 14 to cover 14 against pretty much anybody.
Unless it was UMass.
Or the rest of the SEC schedule this week. And it's like Western Carolina. And even then, they beat like Kentucky 21-0, and Kentucky's not been awful, but they're not Kentucky of last year. I think they only beat Vandy by 21-0 too, didn't they? It has been a weak year for Georgia offensively. So yeah, I've got A&M to cover. Jeff, who do you have?
Get 3. I'll take A&M as well.
Boy, we are all going down with the ship.
Yeah.
Tennessee at Missouri. Missouri are 4-point favorites, and with the win, the Volunteers become bowl eligible, which I did not see coming in early September.
No. that was a little. You couldn't have talked me into that at the starting of the year.
No, we buried them. We buried them by week 3.
Rightfully so. They looked like hell. Give me Tennessee to cover. Oh, I did that like. I'm not happy about that.
I think I've got Tennessee to cover as well because Mizzou looked very bad last week.
I don't think there's much of a bounce back. Missouri's not really good. Give me Tennessee too. Let's balls, bitch.
We're all on Temple. We're all on the Hokies. We're all on the Aggies, and we're all on the Vols. It is just
it's a road week, guys.
Yeah, it is. This is what slim pickings look like.
Oh God.
SMU at Navy. Navy are 3.5-point favorites at home. Navy just got sacrificed by Notre Dame. SMU's had a bye week to prepare for the triple.
Sacrifice.
It's a Catholic joke.
I liked it. I really liked it. Give me SMU.
Okay. I've got SMU to cover because I think that they're going to be better than Notre Dame at getting big plays, even without Robertson, who I think he may be done for the year, fellas, which is a bummer.
Hate to see it.
Oh, man. I mean, these last two games have come down to, 3 total points, so I'm really, really close to picking Navy. But, yeah, I think I'm with Marty. SMU pulls it out with their passing game, so I'll take SMU to cover.
Yeah, and Navy's had a fine year, and they're probably going to hammer Army come later this season, but I think was it Rob Gilmore, or what was the guy's name from ESPN that corrected me on the run defense?
It was he's a former player. Who was it?
Rod Gilmore. It was Rod Gilmore, I think.
Was it Rod Gilmore?
Almost certain.
Did I miss this?
Oh, were you out that week? Yes, yeah. So when SMU was playing Tulsa and they almost lost, Rod Gilmore was adamant about how surprising it was that SMU was getting gutted via the run. And I tweeted, really not doing his homework because SMU's been gutted by the run all season long. And there's a slight, we're both right, because they're really good in yards per play, but they've been like one of the worst teams in letting explosive run plays happen regularly. So he clapped back at me. And so I go, hey, maybe take away all those sack yards for the the rushing yards against, because they had just come off like a 10 interception week against South Florida, which kind of skews the numbers on a yards per rush play. And I'm not upset about it at all. I'm not mad. It's Rod that's mad. And we have Louisiana Tech at UAB. UAB are 4-point.
I'm surprised he didn't clap back at him with "Okay, Boomer."
Oh man, it wasn't a thing yet. But "Okay, Boomer" would have been absolutely the right response. Goodness, I'm gonna retroactively go back to that tweet and say "Okay, Boomer."
I want you to. Thank you.
All right, so Louisiana Tech at UAB. UAB are 4-point favorites. A win by UAB and a loss by Southern Miss could make a 3-way tie for the Conference USA West. I don't know if we've even picked a Conference USA game this year, if it wasn't for maybe those surprise games. So I thought we'd give some attention on a slower week to these teams who are both having good seasons.
I didn't realize it was still a conference.
The Conference USA wasn't?
Yeah.
That's what you thought, the American? It's like they grew up. It was like a Pokemon, and the third stage was the American Conference.
Give me I know nothing about these two teams. Give me UAB.
Kyle and I are going pick for pick, but UAB is going to cover.
I think UAB might be my second team because just their story in general. But Louisiana Tech has been pretty great this year, and I can't say for sure. I think their only loss might still be to Texas. Let me look real quick. It shouldn't take long.
They're 8-2.
They're 8-2, so they must have
lost to Marshall last week.
Yeah. Marshall's got a good defense.
I saw some kind of crazy stat. UAB is like undefeated at home in the last 3 years or something.
Really? Does that include a year where they didn't have a team? Like they
were playing like just some random fans. They just kept beating their asses.
Yeah,
Dan Hawkins was down there coaching the intramural team.
The thing that gets me about UAB is and not to dive too deep into this game, but they lost to Tennessee, which Kyle called, by the way. And then when they played Southern Miss, who's had a pretty weird year, they lost 37-2 to Southern Miss.
Oh.
They're at home, like you mentioned, and they haven't lost a game at home all season. I'm going to say this is the first time they do, and I'm going to stick with Louisiana Tech as my pick. Although I guess they just need to cover. They don't even really need to win, huh?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be the last game you guys know about. We have 2 games that are surprises at the end. Penn State at Ohio State. I would say it's the biggest game of the year, but then I'll remember that Ohio State should slam. But then I'll remember that Baylor and Oklahoma happened, so I'll still probably waste my time with this. It's the big noon Saturday game, isn't it, Jeff?
It's in action.
All right, so Ohio State, they're 18-point favorites. They became the second team in the past 100 years to win their first 10 games by 24 points.
Jesus.
I think that Ohio State covers. I don't trust Penn State.
Wow.
Give me Ohio State. Ohio State's the class of that conference easily, and I just
Really the country, yeah.
yeah. Well, and Penn State doesn't do anything for me. LSU might have something to say about that, but yeah, Penn State does nothing for me. Ohio State does this.
Clifford had some big runs against Indiana, and they were particularly timely. Otherwise, I didn't come away thinking he was that much better than he was against Minnesota. I think Ohio State, I think Penn State will score less points in Ohio State than Rutgers did. So I'm going to go Ohio State to cover. How's that for a prediction?
That's serious.
I'm gonna take Penn State just because their last couple games have been extremely close, and I think they're going to present the biggest challenge Ohio State has seen. I still think Ohio State wins by like 14, but 18 is just a lot.
Seems like every time we said that this year, though, we've getting beat by it. We're just like, you know what, man, 35 points, I don't know. And then it's a 48-point shellac.
That was you in Wake Forest. Yeah,
I'm done doing that shit.
Yeah, I'm projecting.
Done doing that shit right now.
Cool. Well, I've got two big spreads for you guys for these surprise picks. This is going to be good. We've got Michigan State at Rutgers. Michigan State are 20.5-point favorites.
This is rough because I don't know if Michigan State can score 28.5 points.
I think Liberty hung like 40-something on Rutgers.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna stick with my new principle. Give me Michigan State to cover.
I have got Rutgers to cover, but Michigan State wins.
Oh, yeah. Listen to the amount of points Michigan State has scored in their last 5 games. 10, 0, 7, 34, 10.
You know, Northwestern sounded pretty familiar, and then they covered against UMass, almost. They had to beat UMass by 39 points.
Rutgers.
All right, Rutgers it is. And our second surprise game, honestly, it's not a bad game. I thought it'd be a good surprise one. We have TCU at Oklahoma. Oklahoma are 17.5-point favorites after eking out one against Baylor.
But Baylor's a better team than TCU. Give me Oklahoma to cover.
Man, Kyle is going all in on the big spreads, and
that's what I'm doing.
I think I'm going to get... Oh, man, I hate this. I think...
You did this. You did this to yourself.
I know. I'm the one who did it. I'm going to pick TCU to cover. But I think they lose by 17 exactly. So
I didn't realize Oklahoma has really blown out TCU the last couple of years. So, yeah, I'm with Kyle. I'm taking Oklahoma. They're going to beat them.
Well, that's the last thing I wanted to hear was, man, you guys, it's going to be another week where I'm going to be Kyle's getting closer and closer to second place on our all-time standings. Which honestly, it's the only reason I haven't even mentioned them is because Jeff's so far in first place with 85 and 58. Nice. I'm at second at 76 and 67, and then Kyle's third at 66 and 77.
I'm not that close.
You're not that close, but we might do something fun for like bowl season where we do the the confidence points, 32 points, and etc.
Yeah,
and maybe we'd add like we'll just have some kind of like point total. We'll figure something out. We'll do something fun there. Gentlemen, do you have any parting words before we get into week 13?
I hope that Louisville has a very bad week and that Syracuse wins.
You guys know that meme of the two jacked guys that are like clenching arms and they always make it into like two fan bases that hate each other?
Like shaking, they're like shaking hands.
I feel like that's me and Kyle this week, and I feel like I need to go take a shower, so...
Probably should just... You work out so often, Jeff, you probably need a shower most times. So everyone, enjoy week 13.
I'm just happy that I'm being compared to somebody that's jacked. That guy's arm is as big as me.
That is, listeners, one of those arms looks like Jeff, and it's the white guy, just to be clear.
Kyle's the black guy.
Oh my God. Only on Halloween, and we don't really talk about
Whoa!
That. So we will bid you guys adieu. Follow us at RunPodOption on Twitter. RunPodOption@gmail.com. We kind of talked about ways we could use that where you're picking maybe your player of the week. We'll read them on the show. Feel free to send us in some fun bowl matchups you have an idea for, even if they're historic, and it's something like 2005 Texas against 2001 Ohio State or something along those lines. Everybody, say goodbye.
Bye.
Wow.
Oh, Jeff brought the A game this week. Let's get it Big Pick Energy Week 13.